stories are Making Good on a Promise. My name is Osadumebi, and every week I usually tell you a short story written by a Nigerian writer or author. But this is Series Week, where I tell you a story over the course of 2 to 7 consecutive days. Basically, however long it takes to complete the story. Series Week will occur once a quarter, and the stories featured will still be written by Nigerian writers and authors, but will either consist of a sequence of related episodes from one story or a set of stories linked by a common theme. That's the long and short of it. So without much ado, today's story is by Zubair Hassan Baba, and it's the second part of the story titled Along Came Love. Catch up on yesterday's episode for the first part, and listen in tomorrow for the concluding part. Asaba, 1968. My journey to staring death in the eyes was reaching new heights. 1968 was a brutal time in the war. The Nigerian frontier forces had forced Biafran soldiers deeper into their coven, leaving Lokoja safe. I could have stayed back and enjoyed the fresh breath of peace which filled Lokoja's lungs. But I didn't. I had to get to Abo. I had to find the special child. I owed it to the dead woman I never knew. The Nigerian federal government had just taken another stance in the war. A fiendish one. They boycotted human rights and cut off every food network to the east. They swore they would not lose more men when they could easily end the war with hunger as a shield. We can't be fighting them and be feeding them at the same time, they reasoned. Hunger became a weapon, and they wielded it ruthlessly. While Nigerian soldiers fed on fattened sheep for dinner, Biafra and her children hunted lizards for supper. Biafran children fell to kwashiorkor. Hunger wasn't anyone's caddy. It takes from you till there's nothing more to take. It takes your health, your body, and eventually your life. I had scavenged and I was wearing the uniform of a Nigerian soldier. Colonel Olushola, it read. It suited me perfectly. I was a colonel now. No one dared mess with me. But where was my gun? Where was my battalion of soldiers? As I walked towards a Nigerian army's post, I held my breath. One mistake and I am as good as dead. I had to pull off an impersonation. It was my only hope of getting a bus to Asaba. When is the bus leaving for Asaba? I managed to ask when I got to the post. Immediately, junior ranking officers scrambled to attention in front of me, throwing salutations here and there. I stood a little taller, suddenly feeling majestic. I was overwhelmed with the surge of power, the power the uniform held. However, this much power came with no rest of mind and forever looking over one's shoulder. No wonder Ojukwu had gone raving mad, slaughtering every former Igbo officer who had now denounced Nigeria and embraced Biafra. Fear of a coup much? He whom the gods wish to destroy, they first made mad. Sir, the next bus to Asaba moves in a few hours, sir. The sergeants answered in unison. I left them standing in the sun. I didn't know I was meant to dismiss them. They were static, rooted to the ground with hands in salute. They dared not move unless the colonel said so. That was the military and its unwavering obedience to the chain of command. The stiff hierarchical structure must not bend or break. They obey, no complaints. Martial rules. I headed to a makeshift shelter which looked hastily put together to wait out the few hours. I had barely sat down when a junior officer hurried over with an umbrella to shield me from the sun. I had not even asked. Was this how much power these bloodthirsty men in uniform enjoyed? Another officer soon followed with something to eat. I tasted meat for the first time in months. It tasted divine. I ate like I was being chased. I ate like it was my last meal. If only the eyes watching me in awe had known I was not Colonel Olushola. If only they knew I had not tasted meat for months. If only they knew that I was going to the east where I might never taste meat again. If only they knew. By my calculations, I arrived in Asaba sometime in early October. It smelt of pain, affliction, and sudden death. Bodies of the young and old heaped like mounds of sand in the Sahara. It looked like I had just missed a massacre. I heard the tales of what happened from random travelers whose stories came with rickety legs. They told of how hundreds of innocent Nigerians had gathered together in harmony, chanting one Nigeria. They told of how one Major Ibrahim Taiwo gave the order which tore the peaceful multitude apart with an SMG. They told of how able-bodied men and teenagers joined their ancestors prematurely. What were we even fighting for? Oil fields? Forceful amalgamation? Or the greed which shone in our leaders' eyes? Our ineptitude to know the difference between right and wrong and to stand up for what is right and fair was costing too high a price. Widows, orphans, famine, disease, and a ruptured country. Was this what we were fighting for? Enugu, 1968. Asaba to Enugu was a journey to the dragon's belly. If its fire did not kill you, its stinking breath would. Nevertheless, I was willing to have a taste of its delicious heart. Enugu was Biafra's capital, and I knew I would need everything in me to make it out alive. First, I scavenged more appropriate clothing and ditched the Nigerian army uniform. If I hadn't, I wouldn't have made it 5 steps into Enugu before getting shot in the head. I dared not scavenge a Biafra uniform either. Federal troops could swoop in any moment. So, I resumed being the bloody civilian I was, determined to reach Abo before nightfall. Enugu still stood in all its glory. Its people ready to defend her come what may. I saw people moving helter-skelter. I saw them strengthening their defenses. The war had become a game of chess. Pawns, the first to be sacrificed. They were worth nothing on the battlefield anyways. Knights were the next to go down, playing offensive and defensive at the same time. These innocent Biafran people, the ones strengthening their defenses, they were the pawns. I wanted to scream at them. I wanted to tell them they were fools for unknowingly agreeing to become bait. Stop what you are doing and run for your life. That is what I wanted to scream. To scream till my words echoed to the nooks and crannies of Biafra territory. But I could not. I was on a different mission. So I walked on as quickly as my legs could carry me. Imere nke ọma, I muttered as I passed by. One of the few Igbo phrases I picked up alongside Biko nye m mmiri and Biko nye m nri. Please for water and food. Popular phrases among people who had become caricatures. Hunger certainly knew no master. I was fortunate to make it into Abo. I had been accosted a few times by Biafran soldiers who wore paranoia as armor. According to them, I looked nothing like the East. I bore no incision on my temples like every other Imo man and woman out there. They saw me as a threat, but I maintained my composure. I had been through worse moments, and these two jittering baby soldiers drenched in paranoia did not scare me.
Hey, onye ka ibu? Ibu onye? Asị m onye ka ibu?
Nri, I said, gesturing from hand to mouth.
Aha gị ọ bụ nri? Biko, mmiri,
I said again, gesturing, this time with a smile. They laughed too. They laughed so hard I wondered if me and my crude Igbo had become a comedy show. My first name was Food, and my last name, Water. Hilarious. They signaled an old woman who came with a plate of apu and bitter leaf soup. The scanty leaves swam in oily water. I saw the meat placed on the mountain of apu. It had a tail and 4 legs. Christ High School was not hard to find. It was not a school anymore, though. It was now a shelter for refugees and displaced persons. Its giant billboard was riddled with bullet holes, every letter defaced. I stepped into the building. Airy silence hugged my ears, and filth graced my eyes. Every step I took affirmed the notion Biafra was not ready. The faces I saw were tired of the war and the misfortune it brought with it. The children played in silence. They were not allowed to step out. What do children know? I held the picture and showed it to everyone I came across. Please, have you seen this boy? I asked. The image in the picture, if I could still call it that, was barely recognizable. The paper was crumpled, colors faded, and a blemish claimed a large chunk of the faces. Please, look closely, I begged. The answers given were affirmations to nothing. A slight head shake, and that was it. No one cared to know why I had traveled over 300 kilometers to find a boy. If he wasn't in the school turned camp, then he was probably dead. But something in me refused to believe that. He can't be dead. He had better not be dead. A malnourished young lady circled quietly and then signaled for me to follow. Her subtle hand gesture suggested she didn't want to draw attention to herself. So I followed at a distance, still stopping momentarily to flash the picture at people while keeping an eye on the direction she was headed. She walked towards a building on the other side of the school compound and headed to the back of it. I followed. A ragged tent, made with ripped clothes, stood between the building and the fence. "Who are you?" she asked in a hushed tone. "A traveler in search of this boy." "Why are you searching for him?" "Why do you care?" "Then you will not find him." she said with a note of finality. She turned around and began walking to the tent, her abode, I presumed. Nne sent me. I almost screamed. Nne? She asked. Yes, Nne. A woman, light-skinned. She spoke good English. Straight nose. Brown eyes, I think. I saw her eyes widen in recognition as I described. Yes, that's Nne. But she is dead, though, I added quickly. The surge of happiness seeping into her face dissipated, and a sad cloud descended instead. She wiped a tear with the back of her hand. Nne must have meant something to her. So, what did she ask you to do with the boy? She asked. She asked me to take him to his father. I was told he is special and will fetch me a handsome reward. She smiled, an ambiguous smile. Her expression, a cross between marvel and a smirk. It was the kind of smile that I would give a Johnny Just Come who thought living in Lagos automatically makes one rich because people in Lagos pick money on the floor like paper. Her smile ridiculed. Why are you smiling? I asked. Do you even know who Ndubisi is? Zubair Hassan Baba is a talented historic fiction writer residing in Abuja. With a recently completed master's degree in international relations from the University of Abuja, he is now seeking to make his mark in the academic world. In 2021, he was honored with the prestigious Bada Muria Writing Fellowship, powered by the MacArthur's Foundation, further solidifying his reputation as a rising literary voice. Beyond his award-winning historical fiction, Zubair has also authored several other acclaimed works. You can connect with Zubair on Facebook at Zubair Hassan Baba, on X at Zubair Day for You, or via email at hassanzubair259@gmail.com. Details and links will be in the episode description. If you've got a story you would like to be featured on this podcast, or a published book you want to make into an audiobook, send an email to info@osadumebi.com, or send me a message at Osadumebi on either Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, or X. I look forward to collaborating with you. And if you've enjoyed this week's episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and tell someone, everyone, that stories are a good escape for a few minutes each week.